Hello, 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 everybody. It is Friday, May 20th. I am Kennan, him, the host of Access Lit, Last Mile for Digital Equity. I am so happy to be with you all today. This is the second episode. So if you tuned into the first episode where I introduced myself, gave you a little bit of the why, I'm picking up the helm from the late, great friend, brother, mentor to so many of us, Dirk Tillotson. Do check that episode out if you haven't. It is still on YouTube and Facebook. Do check out all the content on YouTube at Ledbetter so that you get a context for what we're doing right now as we bring back the love, the light, the heart, and the energy from Grade School Voices, and all the work that was done is not finished. And we're here at a critical moment in the lifespan of our generation where we can make the right choices to create digital equity for generations to come. And that's why I brought back the whole series that started with access denied. Then we got some access granted to us real quick. But right now it's lit. It's happening. This last mile for digital equity is now, and we can take advantage of it. There are presidential announcements that are going out talking about how this is such an important piece to how we move forward. So that's me. We are here every other Friday starting now. So don't expect me next week, but I'll be back the week after that at noon on your favorite platform, whether that be Facebook. Shout out to my folks on Facebook. What's up? Whether that be YouTube. You know what you're supposed to do if you're on YouTube. Like, smash, do the subscription, ring the bell, all that stuff. And if you're checking in on Twitter, do follow Grade School Voices. Do follow Oakland Undivided because you know that's my guest today. And do tap in on all things digital equity, digital inclusion, and really this last mile for broadband access. Like we're really, really pushing, and it's going to happen. Today, I am honored because as I told y'all in episode 1, we're going to talk national. We're going to go big, but we rooted in Oakland, y'all. We are here in the town trying to make a big difference, and we're proving to be an example for what can be the foundation of this work to come, how you bridge this divide, not digital divide, but this public and private investment dollar division that happens. And how do you bring folks together at the table from the grassroots all the way up to, as I love what Dirk would say, the grass tops? How do we bring everyone to the table with equity so that we can really talk about this last piece? And so I get the honor of bringing on the Oakland Undivided team today. They were part of the last episode that Dirk was able to broadcast to you all. And there were some really incredible just developments that had happened since they started the program right at the onset of the pandemic to where in 2021 they were talking about what's next. And I know not everybody was part of this discussion and not everybody was able to tune in to those episodes. So before I bring the squad on, before I bring Patrick Messac and David Silver on to talk about where Oakland Undivided is, who they are, what's coming up next, and what we really need to be talking about, I want to bring it back to the video where Dirk introduced us to Oakland Undivided, gave us a great intro, but then David Silver gave us a really wonderful background into what has been done and what is to come. And I think that'll be a great place for us to then pick up the conversation right where we left off. Not as though time hasn't passed, but as though three friends are just sitting at the table having a discussion. So with that, I'm gonna slide it over to this beautiful video right here. So let's just check out what happened last time when David Silver was kicking it with Dirk Tillotson.
If you're calling tech support. So I'm glad our families aren't feeling that. I'd love to go to you, David, and just hear a little bit about, tell me about Oakland Undivided, some of the citywide planning, and really what's the city doing in this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dirk. And I also just want to give a shout out to Oakland Reach and all the different people who are on this call, and just to everybody who's taking this seriously and utilizing this moment. So when the pandemic hit, this inequity, as Michael talked about, has always existed. But when the pandemic hit, there was a moment when we wanted to leverage that to actually address an inequity and actually make sure we could capitalize on the political will to actually ensure every single student, family, and person within the city has access to computers, internet, and tech support. So Oakland Undivided existed because the community came together and said, hey, we need to make sure that every single student and family has this access. Literally, it's making what was implicit, this inequity, explicit, because if you did not have a computer and internet, you were not able to actually access school. Incredibly disingenuous in terms of the fact that we're saying we can have access, but not making it happen. We said we need to make this happen. So at that point, the mayor and the superintendent, community-based organizations like Tech Exchange, who's been operating for over 25 years in the community, as well as Oakland Promise, as well as the Ed Fund, came together with other leadership partners like the Oakland Reach, like the Kapoor Center, and others to make sure that we could say a stake in the ground, everyone will have it. What did we do? We did a survey, and based on that survey, as the statistics showed that Dirk talked about before, we thought out of the 50,000 kids in Oakland, only half of them had access. What we found is when we did a comprehensive survey for every single family, 34,000 public school students' families filled it out, and we found that only 12% of those students had a computer and internet that was reliable. So we said we needed to make sure of that. We handed out 29,000 computers. We handed out over 10,000 hotspots, and we also made sure that there were tech support requests that were able to be resolved. And over 10,000 people actually called into Tech Exchange, which is one of the key partners for Oakland Undivided, to make sure that they could get support. In addition to that, we tried to say, this is not enough to make sure that we can hand out stuff, but are we actually closing gaps? So we looked at data student by student and made sure that that statistic that Dirk talked about, we went from 12% of students to 97%, and actually now it's 98% of students had access to a computer, internet, and tech support that we could confirm. Now, as we think about that, that's fine, but what about our inequities? What about our African-American students, our Latinx students, our students from low-income backgrounds? We made sure that all of them also had, and 98% of those particular demographics also had access. So that was what we call step one and phase one. As we go into phase two, to your point, Dirk, how do we actually maintain this access? How do we actually do that? We think of it in a couple ways. Number one is we need the community public will to say this is not okay to not have access and tech support. We need to make sure this happens. That's why we at Oakland Undivided, we actually were at Oakland Undivided night at the A's game, and I'm going to put out this little, these are some of the partners that we had on here, some of the community partners where we bring everyone together so that we can say all of us together are going to make this happen. This particular phase that we're doing right now is saying two things. One, we are going to maintain the fact that every single public school student in Oakland, district and charter, will have access to a computer, internet, and tech support by ensuring all the new students, all the kids that their computers broke or that they had internet access, but now because of the pandemic, they no longer can afford it. We're making sure that they can fill out a tech check survey, and we made it really simple for families, got feedback from families, including Oakland Reach, to make sure that we could have it more accessible. Now people can fill out that tech check survey, get that access right away. That is what we want to do. And we got a $4.4 million commitment from Oakland Unified that's going to make sure that in the budget for the next 2 years, all computers for all new students or students who break their computers will be able to access it. We're working in partnership with Tech Exchange to make sure that all families who don't have access can still get those computers and hotspots. And then we're also partnering to make sure that every single student is accessing internet as well. That said, that is a good solution for now. And we also, but we want to make sure that we can systematically make sure that this occurs in the future. How do we do that? Citywide broadband. We want to make sure that we are maintaining computers, internet, and tech support, but also expanding to more community partners, like what is being done at the different organizations that are here, and also leveraging the public dollars and this moment from the federal government, the state government. Lily's going to talk about this in a little while, and Kapoor has done great leadership on this to make sure that we can access fiber, we can access middle mile, the SB 156 to make sure our flatland neighborhoods are accessing more citywide broadband.
Whew, I tell you, I watched that video. I don't know. I watched it when it aired live and I got pumped up. I was juiced. There was a call to action at the end for everyone to get involved however they could, right? To really put your hand into the pool and throw some of your ingredients into the gumbo and see what you could do as Oakland, as Oaklanders, right? To make sure that we were able to meet these next phase. So, whew, I hope y'all got pumped up from that. I gotta like settle myself because man, David, you set it off perfectly in that moment on that show. So without further ado, I'm gonna do some quick intros for our guests. We got Patrick Messac, who I am just like floored by the journey. I'm floored by the person that is right here with me, beside me, formerly a teacher, formerly a director, an admin, someone who worked in nonprofits, but also you were in the Oakland schools at the time of the pandemic. When it all came to pass, when we all saw the virtual learning opportunities being lost, on our students being missed, you were out there driving cars to drop off laptops, man. Like you were out there making sure that our students were getting what they needed, that our families were understanding the opportunities being presented to them. And that's how you now are project director, put some spec on the name, at Oakland Undivided. So Patrick, thank you for joining us. It is such a pleasure to have you here. And without further ado, I'm going to jump right into our other guest. You heard him right before, pumping us up. If you've never seen David Silver in person, you don't get the energy nearly. I mean, that was at 100, but in person it's 1,000. This man brings the energy all the time because the message is true from the heart. And I think that's what connects us all, is we have this beautiful heart center around K-12. Think Now College founder, right? But before that, Lockwood Elementary assistant principal, and I heard it from the great. I'm not gonna lie to you, David. This is not putting any extra candy on this sweetness right here. I was sitting next to the incredible Bruce Buckaloo, and he turned to me and he said, "And you know, David was a great assistant principal." And you come on, right? So formally an assistant principal at Lockwood Elementary. So we understand the class and we are united in this right here. But now director of education at the Oakland Mayor's office since 2015. So let's talk about it. Longevity, doing this work. I remember we first really got to meet when you started the Oakland Promise. And I was trying to get West Oakland Middle School to be a promise school. And we were talking about, well, how do I get my principal to adopt whatever? And come on, Kennan, you got to run the laps to try to get the mile. And so I was there with you trying to get that popping off at West Oakland Middle School. My son is a part of it at Redwood Heights, 2 sons, definitely down. But now you're not only leading the Northern California, right, coalition on this promise, right, but you're also the leader of the Oakland Undivided team, a squad that you laid out is grassroots to grass tops, is thinking about this idea of digital equity in its totality, right? It's not one or the other. It's not in one place that we have to work, but we have to work across our city. And Patrick, I think what I love about your story is that you always, I think that's all of us. And I think that's the way I'm going to end my talking and send it over to you two. And I'll start with you, Patrick. We all have K-12 at our heart. I was in the classroom, West Oakland Middle School, Phoenix is right here. We do it. I was in the classroom. I understand what it's like to be in the K-12 sphere, but now I'm a vice president at a tech firm who wants to do workforce differently, and we're trying to engage in broadband. I understand that's a large journey, but my heart center is with the people. My heart center is with the community. That is something we all share. But like, how, Patrick? How does an educator end up as a director of what is now going to be seen as an example for how we set the foundation for digital equity? Like, share with us this journey a little bit, please. I know why do you do this?
So first and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me on the pod today. And I definitely want to start by, just honoring Dirk's legacy. I wasn't on his last podcast. I know David was, but it was one of my introductions to Oakland Undivided, and seeing the energy in the room, the community collaboration, and Dirk just as a tour de force that holds us all to account and to the highest standard. One of my first emails in my inbox, once I got my Oakland Undivided email, was from Dirk, and he had written me a list of maybe 13 or 14 questions. And these were pretty much the 13 or 14 questions that I was trying to answer, but he hadn't been in the room with me. Yet he had such an incisive kind of lens where he was able to identify critical issues. And I wrote back, I'm like, how do you know to ask all these questions? So really honored to be here in his legacy today, and that you're carrying on this important work and lifting up equity. So grateful to be here today. As you said, my name is Patrick Messac. I'm the project director for Oakland Undivided, but at my core, I am an educator. I was school-based when announcement came over the intercom that we had 4 hours to be out of the building because of the pandemic. And in those 4 hours, the kids were kind of giddy. Ooh, we get 2 weeks off. Let's go. And the teachers were frantically running up to the copy machine. Of course, it jammed because everyone was trying to run off their packets. We were emptying out the Chromebook carts, trying to get kids set up for the uncertainty ahead. And in the weeks that followed, there were so many students, so many of my Life Academy students that we had to work to get in touch with. We couldn't, the phone number in the student information system was a little outdated. They didn't have access to their email. And we started getting in cars and visiting homes. And, the digital divide was simply one inequity, which during the pandemic was layered on top of other inequities. Our families who were house insecure, food insecure. Many of our families work in industries that were decimated in the first year of the pandemic. So we have families losing jobs. And I remember when that Oakland Undivided pallet showed up at our school, and we had hundreds of computers, and right away teachers start taking those boxes, getting them in the car, driving out to the students to get them set up. And in many ways, when we handed students that computer, we were handing them access to their education, access to social benefit, access to vital 21st century infrastructure. And in the ensuing months, this time last year, I was building potato batteries with my kids on Zoom. I saw the promise and the potential of digital connectivity, both in a distance learning environment, but also in the return to normal, or whatever we are going to consider normal moving forward. And when I saw this opportunity to come on to Oakland Undivided and to bring that perspective of someone who's been on the ground implementing the program, I really jumped at the opportunity. I think David must have seen something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself. And education still grounds everything that we do. We will always at our core be an educational equity initiative. And we recognize that our kids don't live in silos, and that our students are both products of and agents in their communities. And until we bring true community connectivity, we are not fulfilling our goal of educational equity. So just a little bit about me. I'm super excited to be on the pod today. Super excited to be having this really important conversation at a historical moment of real promise. So I'll kick it back to you, and just really grateful to be here.
Thank you. I think you summarized something that we will touch on here in this show quite often, which is unlocking digital opportunities within the new economy. Right? This digital economy that we're working with requires our young people to be literate in all these ways. And to be able to be literate in all these ways, you must have the access, available, equitable connectivity that you all are striving for. So I agree. It is right back to the reason why I would ever teach a young person grammar. It's because I know eventually in your life, you're going to need it so that you can get to that next level in your career, the next level of your development, so you can teach it to the next babies. We got to keep this knowledge. And I think you're right. In order to get to that next digital economy, we really got to put it in their hands. My goodness. Okay. Oh, I don't know how we're gonna get through this today, y'all. This is like, I mean, powerful stuff, and we haven't even talked to you yet, David. David, you've got a long story, right? But it's grounded in the classroom first. It's grounded in, I think, Teach for America, right? You're a TFA, so you're grounded in this idea of equitable education, right? Getting education into hands of every student. How does that translate to this journey of being here? Why be at the mayor's office? Why then take your space as the director of education and use it for these different platforms? Like, it's a lot. Well, tell us about the man, the myth, the legend. And you don't gotta pop it and lock it, but I'll send it to you that way. Yeah, I'm biting. Let's go. Oh, okay. Switch it. Okay. Well, what we got? Oh, dub night. It's dub night.
Thank you, Kennan, and thank you, Patrick, as well. I first also just want to pay tribute to Dirk. I've known Dirk for a few decades, and there are a few people in this world, and I believe that Dirk is still in this world, that are truly committed to kids and truly committed to equity and truly committed to opportunity in a way that is about quality for all, like Dirk. And Dirk didn't care about politics. He didn't care about what people thought about him. He cared about what was best for kids and what was best for families, and specifically families that have been victims and basically been faced historic racism over time, institutionalized racism. And I just want to say, we wouldn't be here without him. We stand on the shoulders of him. And anything that we do at Oakland Undivided, like Patrick said, like, no organization is perfect. And we made a lot of mistakes. We did some things well, some things we could have done better. And Dirk helped us to get better. And that's what he always sticks in our head when we're like, so are we actually getting results? Are we actually sustaining this? Are we actually making sure the quality is good enough? That's Dirk in our ear, reminding us that it must be, and we can't stop.
Thank you.
So I think I'll just say, I'll quickly summarize. I was, as you mentioned before, I was a teacher. I was a teacher in Compton for a couple of years, 35 kids in my classroom, no digital access. I moved up to Oakland. I was a teacher at Hawthorne Elementary. Bruce Buccalow literally was installing OTX West computers in our classroom. So we had at least two that were there in 97, 98. And then I fast forward, heard a statistic that out of 20 kids in Oakland, only 1 out of 20 was eligible to go to a University of California school, let alone go. I got together with my kids and their families. I was pretty close with them. I said, how many of y'all want to go to college? They raised their hand. I said, how many of you think you're going to go to college? They raised their hand. I said, no. If we keep things the way they are right now, only one of you gets to go. They said, Mr. Silver, why are you being so mean? I said, do you want to do something about it? They said, yeah. I said, what if we create an entire school where from kindergarten on, everyone's going to college, and we'll call it Think College Now. So that was the birth of families coming together, students, community organizations, to launch in the old Montgomery Ward building, Think College Now, to make sure every single student in Fruitvale could have an opportunity to go to college, graduate from college. I was there for 8 years. We were able to raise achievement levels. I testified before Congress around how to turn around a school, came back from DC and said, and by the way, here's that school right here. Let's see, I'm pretty bad at this, but that's me shaving my head. I actually had to grow out my hair, and if they read 100 million minutes, they got to shave it off and write TCN in the back. But nevertheless, I came back from Washington, D.C., and I said to the families, what do you think of the school? And they said, well, we don't care about all these test results. You made us a promise. You told me my kid was going to go to college. What happens after 5th grade? I didn't have a good answer. I looked at what were great organizations getting kids from middle school all the way through college, found College Track, said, hey, if I'm a part of College Track, maybe I can get my kids to and through college. I ended up joining College Track for 4 years, got a bunch of my kids in there, as well as we expanded to different places across Oakland, but also across other regions of the country. Mayor approached me and said, hey, it's great what you're doing for 300 kids at Think College Now. It's great what you're doing for a couple thousand kids across the country. But remember, we have 50,000 kids every single day that are in Oakland every year. What about them? And I said, all right, what do we do? And so we came together and partnered. I joined the mayor's office as director of education because I wanted to make sure every one of those 50,000 kids had educational equity. The first step of that was to make sure they could all go to college, graduate from college, and have the tools to do that. We launched the Oakland Promise. It's now its own 501c3. We've served, over 30,000 kindergartner students, over 3,000 college students. Actually, tonight, 730 students that are seniors in high school will be going off to college with money and support to be able to be successful, largely African-American and Latinx students. And they will be supported all the way through. But then second term hits, pandemic hits. And at the end of the day, I knew about the digital divide, but I didn't really get it. But as Patrick talked about so eloquently, when the pandemic hit, I got it. And I didn't get it as well as the other students and family members, or students like my former kindergarten student, Jessica Ramos, right here, who literally was in front of the library as a junior, filling out her grades, filling out her applications to college, doing her homework online outside. Is that equity? While a lot of kids that have more privilege are in their homes with a bunch of computers and high-speed internet. No, it isn't. Other kids not even being able to access school, like this fundamental right, can't even get there if you don't have a computer and access. Superintendent, community groups came together and said, help. It wasn't an idea necessarily of me or the mayor. This was an idea of the community saying, we need to do something about this. This was the idea of the educators, the parents, the superintendent saying, we need to make sure for equity that in this moment, every kid has three things: computer, internet, tech support. So we were able to launch. You heard the story before. We've actually now handed out 35,000 computers, 18,000 hotspots, and also given out, done about over 15,000 tech support requests, thanks in part to Tech Exchange for their leadership. And that's great. But at the end of the day, as Patrick talked about, it's not enough. That was phase one. That was that then. But what we have now is a moment. What we have now is an opportunity where the entire community is coming together. If you were there at Martin Luther King Elementary School 2 weeks ago, we made some special announcements, which I'll talk about later. We brought together 175 community members, students, families, parents, to speak and share from their heart how this affects them and how it can affect them. And we're not about just K-12. As Patrick said, we're not about silos. We are about ensuring a cradle to career continuum so every baby that is born can have access to the digital skills and the digital tools that they deserve from birth all the way through kindergarten, elementary, middle, high school, into a local college so they can get into a career of their choice, as well as making sure those residents, which Patrick will talk about as well, that are not parents, not students, also have that access.
Ooh, so much to dig in. So much to dig in. Thank you, David. The why is obvious now. For anyone who was questioning, if you were out there and you were trying to figure it out, you got three folks on this call who deeply care about the community, deeply care about the people in our city of Oakland, and will literally come back in order to make sure that equity is met in our city. And so I am honored. I am proud to be on this conversation with you both. And it's just like, it's this beautiful moment. Like you said, Patrick, it's historic, right? President making announcements. We got 20 ISPs signing on to make sure that there is this understanding of availability, right? Now, how do we make this available infrastructure that we've built, these fiber lines that are laid, how do we make them available to folks through programs like the ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program? How do we make this in the hands of the folks? And I remember, David, you were in this conversation. I remember, right, like you laid down what was coming next. You said that there was going to be a movement to community colleges. There was going to be this movement back down the funnel, but really upstream to get to the pre-K, to get to the first 5, right? And that's how you were all going to start to move from 98% to 100, right? And I think we talked about it. It's like, is that really what we trying to do? Are we really trying to focus on this last 2%? Are we looking at a big picture systemic challenge that is an overarching challenge to how we really engage our most marginalized, our most left out, the people that are like, I remember this conversation about rural versus urban and all the funding heading rural because they have the need, but we got the people and the people are here, but they got served and they're not really. Oh my goodness. We have so much to unpack. I first wanted to just like ask you that question. Like 98 to 100 sounds great. But what else is there? Is that really the real question? Is that really what we're talking about, David? Are we talking about 2%? Or are we talking about more than that?
I think I would consider it a both and Patrick can share more on this. It's easy to say, great, we went from 12% to 98%, and that's 12% of students from low-income backgrounds, 25% overall to 98% connectivity. And it's true, they had access to a hotspot, they had access to a computer, but I think it's more than that. I think that what we're talking about is what's as important as getting from 98 to 100 is also the quality of the connection for those students that might have something, the actual sustainability for the 5,000 new students that are going to come in every year into the school district or charter schools, the people who are breaking their computers, I break mine all the time, like that are going to have to be able to replace them. So to me, it is bigger. It is about making sure that we have not only access, but we go down to pre-K and we go up through college into career, as well as we make sure that we have quality connections. And hotspot's not enough. We need to have broadband in the home, and we need to figure out how to do that. And Patrick can share more about that, as well as we need to sustain this effort and leverage the public funding. We can't philanthropy our way out of it. We need to sustain it and integrate it into the institutions, the LEAs, the schools, the districts, the city, so that this, when we're gone, is just like water, is just like electricity. It just happens.
Yeah, it's been Dirk's push. I think it was one of the first whispers in my ear about 5 years ago was Dirk pushing for this right of internet. We no longer have the like luxury of internet. This is like energy. This is like having your gas and electric. You need it in order to survive, be a part of this now economy, not just the future economy, this now economy. And I think you're absolutely right. And before we talk about quality, because Patrick, I'm hearing that when I want to talk broadband, and trust me, that it on that last episode, props to Yap, right? Yap was like, yo, I need symmetrical up and down. And that has been in my head ever since he said it, searching for it myself in my own home. How do I get symmetrical? But before we go there to quality, you said quality and you said sustainability, David. Those are those are big. Those are big buckets, right? If we talk about buckets in the normal language. But before we even get there, how has the Oakland Promise been so successful at building this coalition? I know y'all have a lot of folks engaged. People, and Lord, if I say it too much, just somebody come and tell me, grassroots to grass tops. You've got a coalition that generally reflects almost the totality of what we're talking about, right? Getting the groundswell and getting those people, like you said, now we're talking about at people's homes who are not parents of students, at people's homes who are maybe seniors, right? They got kids that have aged out of this program of cradle to career. And we got students that like Dirk mentioned, we got students that just are out of school. They're no longer students. They're young adults. And they're trying to figure out what is next for them. So you have a whole coalition. And I got something teed up for you so that you can help us like really just understand like what it takes. Because Oakland Undivided, Patrick, we talked about this. It's going to set a foundational bar. We're going to push that bar. We're going to keep raising the ceiling, keep pushing the flood levels up, right? So that we can get a higher bar, a higher ground. But right now, Oakland Undivided is setting the stage for what can be done nationally. And it takes this coalition of folks, right? This understanding that it's more than one. It's not just me in the room and my 5 people that I love, but it's like everybody whose input needs to be at the table. So I'm gonna just bring this over because I know you had me bring up something. Here it is. This is based on what you guys just announced. right? Y'all just announced a couple weeks ago some really, I thought, was incredible news. You had FCC there, you had CTC, you had not Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but if you had that, I'd have ate it. But you know what I mean? It was a party. You had empanadas though, and those were hitting. And it was an amazing event. And at that event, you know, we really talked about like some bullet points. So you had some bullet points for us, and I'm gonna share that right now. Will you walk us through what's going on over here with the celebration and what you guys announced is really the new milestones, the new like North Stars?
Absolutely. Well, I'll announce the first one, and then maybe Patrick can announce the second one. At the end of the day, there are three things. And that's always my favorite number. And that's what I think I can remember. One, for the third straight year, every single one of the 50,000 Oakland Public School students will have access at home to a computer, internet, and culturally competent tech support. Two, we are going to expand from K-12 to pre-K and into local colleges. We had 9 colleges that signed up and will commit to actually provide computer and internet to our kids and families, as well as Head Start and OUSD Pre-K, who have made that commitment as well. Patrick, can you go to the next?
Yeah, and as we talked about earlier, you know, we know our kids don't live in silos, and I think the episode that Dirk's last episode was called "Desegregating the Internet," and if you look at Oakland's Greenlining has done some really foundational work here. The Greenlining Institute has done some really foundational work here in Oakland to map out where people have access and where people don't. And it's disturbingly predictable. You can take a 1930s redlining map and overlay it over Oakland today, and you pretty much have Oakland's connectivity heat map. We are a city where there are over 36,000 households without access to broadband internet. 94,000 residents without access to a computer, internet, or both. An estimate was recently made that only about 1/3 of those households have students in K-12. So we are talking about a deep systemic structural injustice. And we have set an ambitious goal with our partners at Education Superhighway and our vast community coalition to try to connect 90% of these 36,000 residents within the next 5 years. And like real talk, this is an ambitious goal because there are a lot of barriers that we must overcome, both as an urban area, because for so long the digital divide has been framed as kind of a rural area, and there are some interests that would like to ensure that the status quo is preserved. And I think that we are a mighty David in this David versus Goliath. But we're going to make some things happen here, and we're already making some exciting things happen on the ground that I'd be excited to share about.
That is, I mean, you want to talk about lofty but incredibly humble goals. Like, you guys are just, I can't say enough about, you know, this is really the group that we're talking about when we're looking at what it takes to really affect this change, this systemic change. There's an episode, if you haven't seen it, that Dirk did. I believe it's part of the Access Denied series, so the first series in 2020, where he talks about the redlining, and he brings up the old maps, and you look at the highways and the built environmental barriers that basically symbolize the lines themselves. And then you look at where we've placed fiber, where we've placed opportunities to connect, where we placed opportunities for transportation, right? And we're making headway, BRT into the Fruitvale, into East Oakland, running fiber along that line, increasing Oakland's free Wi-Fi network across that corridor, right? We've made headway, but it takes more than a village. It takes a town. And I just like, as you all are taking a moment to just like soak it in, right? Founding partners include Tech Exchange. 25 years, David, in the business of like bringing computers. I heard you say 96, and 2013 is when Bruce Buckaloo brought computers to my classroom, right? So like same man in his like 15th retirement is doing this work, and then Seth took on the helm, and now it just continues to be a force in our city. You've got the incomparable superintendent of Oakland Unified School District on your side, right there, side by side with the mayor. I feel like they should have a podcast next year. Like they need a series where they talk and chum it up, and it could just be about like high school or like the best bites in Oakland. Like I just enjoy when they ham it up. Like it's just a good old time. But you started getting into the second and third tier right here with Oakland Reach, public libraries, block power. Shout outs to Greenlining for doing a report that really just dug in. Caper Center, Education for Change. There's Oakland Wi-Fi. We are really, shout outs to Sideways Cafe. I mean, I just see Homies Empowerment's got to be on there somewhere. Shout outs to the Oakland A's. When's the next A's night? I need those tickets. It's just holler. But apart from that, yeah, let's dive into this quality challenge. Patrick, like we got the people. I'm hearing there's funding coming, right? I saw an announcement, but I know I've heard this billions thing thrown around. Like, oh my God, like what is that? A suitcase that shows up at my door? Like, let me get at it.
I wouldn't be mad at that.
Who got the bag? Let me get at it. Let's give it to the people. We can Robin Hood this, but like really though. What are you working on? Pilots, strategies, understanding of the funding models and how they're coming that allows us to tackle this quality challenge, right? 100 megabytes per second, we've realized is the floor, it's the minimum. But what are we striving for? Like, is it gig up and down? We're gonna get there. We're gonna get to gig up and down because that's what Dirk wanted, and I'm here because I'm like, this is what Dirk wanted. So let's go.
Yeah, Kennan, I think quality is such an important question. And so I want to break my answer up into kind of the two buckets of Oakland Undivided. The first is the school-based goal, right? We want to ensure that 50,000 Oakland public school students have access to a computer, internet, and tech support. We've been able, initially it was, Jack Dorsey coming through with a big check, and we're grateful to him for spurring our ability to scale the remarkable work of Tech Exchange. But we recognize that we can't, I think the mayor says we can't bake sale our way out of structural injustice, right? So one really important function of our collective is ensuring that we leverage federal funds. The Emergency Connectivity Fund by the FCC allows schools and trusted institutions like libraries to bulk purchase computers and internet for any student or household that has a documented unmet need. Now, you've been at a school before, right? You're hustling. You're focused on the issue of the day. Oh man, power went out. The toilet's overflowing. I have 2 teacher observations to do today. You want your kids to have all things. You recognize that schools spend more time with children oftentimes than their own families have time to. So you recognize your critical role, and you can't do all things. So that's where someone like Oakland Undivided coming in and saying, hey, listen, there's this incredible program. We will fund your grant application. We will walk you through the process, and we'll be there for you every step of the way, is allowing virtually every school across Oakland to leverage these federal dollars to continue to provide these $400 computers, $250 in internet benefit, not just for last year, this year, but this last round just came around and we got all of our partners back in for that third round, that $1 billion. Let's get that money to Oakland, right? Now, that's really critical, and we're advocating at a state and federal level to continue bulk purchasing opportunities like that, so our trusted institutions who know our community so well, who are trusted by our community so well, can continue to provide that benefit. But we also recognize that, hotspots are an important stopgap solution. And for certain families, they're a critical resource. For our families experiencing houselessness, for our families who can't access a federal benefit, for our foster youth, these provide connectivity on the go. And in certain areas of town, they provide a reliable connection. But we also recognize that the speeds of hotspots, anywhere between 3 and 10 megs is just not going to cut it. It'll get you through a Zoom call, but it's not going to get you through a job interview. It's not going to get you through the kind of robust learning platforms that we want our students to be able to access. And that's why with schools, we are really focused on upping the quality by helping us access the Affordable Connectivity Program. If you don't know about the ACP, you can go to, I think it's getinternet.gov, acpbenefit.org. It is a long-term new social benefit, $30 a month for a ton of eligibility criteria: Pell Grant recipients, free and reduced lunch, SNAP, WIC, CEP schools, of which OUSD has like 72, automatically eligible, right? So we want to make sure that our families have access to this benefit, because then they're not relying on a hotspot, but they can get a wired connection to their home. And a lot of providers are jumping on the bandwagon now to be able to provide a $30 plan, 100 megs. And again, I think we got to strive for more. We have a company out here that provides gig speeds at $45. So if you apply this benefit at $30, $15 a month, you're looking at symmetrical gigabit speed internet up down. So really exciting opportunities there with school. And our great partners, OUSD and our charter LEAs, have been so integral to that success. But I want to transition to this second bucket, because I think this is really a critical conversation.
Come on, talk about it. Bring in the fire, man. You bring in the fire.
I got some feelings, so I'm going to try to.
We're going to throw them in the description. All those links. Y'all need to get up on the ACP, though, because he's not lying. If you're looking at the cost of Sonic right now in our area, the ACP will help cover most of that cost. Like, you can get this gig up and down, this symmetrical hit, and you can actually have a backup with the Oakland Wi-Fi, right? That could be your backup plan if everything goes down. What world do we live in where we can have a backup internet plan? Come on, y'all. We need to get this word out. I'm gonna make sure that link is in the description so people get there and get on, because they expanded the eligibility, y'all. It's not this small, narrow suit that you got to fit into that I can't qualify. No, you can qualify. And like, this is just like me blasting on a soapbox in the middle, because that is the truth. We need to get this word out. Patrick, come on, bring the fire. Second bucket. What you got? Oh my God.
Yeah. So
I'm like, what are we doing?
Hey, no, I'm with you. So ACP is going to be critically important for our students, and schools are uniquely situated to help students enroll and families enroll in the ACP benefit. So we're going all in there. ACP is also a critical component for urban areas to ensure that as many families as possible are getting this benefit. We had a meeting with the FCC, a roundtable with the FCC commissioner a couple of weeks back, and we had a great conversation with him, with many of our community partners who are talking about their efforts to enroll community members in this benefit. And there are some real challenges. Like, yes, eligibility is wide, but it can take between 30 and 40 minutes currently for a family to enroll in this benefit, right? We are working in lockstep with the FCC to ensure that we can streamline this application process. And we're, through our partnerships with the TownLink program and Greenlining and Education Superhighway, launching broadband adoption hubs throughout the city to ensure that families have a place that they can go to get walked through the application process and get the support that they need. We think that's a critical component, and it allows us to leverage the existing infrastructure we have here. But to take a step back for a minute, we are not going to subsidy our way out of the digital divide, right? In Oakland, we are looking to deploy layers of innovative solutions that can reach all members of our unconnected community. One of those exciting projects is Block Power. They are launching a community-owned LTE network on the CBRS wavelength. And one of the first things they need to do is tap into fiber infrastructure, right? For this wireless signal to be projected out, we need access to fiber. They're doing mesh networks in New York. They come out here, let's go, let's make this happen. They see, wow, y'all have very few fiber providers here. It's a duopoly. You got two essential providers here. Mm-hmm. And the cost of fiber backhaul in Oakland is 5 to 10 times what it is out in New York City. So we want to bring in innovative models that are community-based. But if you're paying 5 to 10x what you're paying in more competitive markets, there is a need for urban infrastructure, open access, publicly owned and operated middle mile infrastructure. So we can start connecting anchor institutions. We can connect public housing. We can connect our nonprofits. We can build a expansive network to deploy and that new innovative private providers can tap into. And then we saw that opportunity. $3.25 billion, states coming in saying, we're building this middle mile network. Let's go. We're like, this is what we need. But they're using it based on ISP self-reported data of where service currently exists. And so you look at Oakland on a map, and ISPs are saying, hey, no, Oakland's good. Don't worry about Oakland. Oh, yeah, and every other population center across California, yeah, they're good too. Don't worry about them. Build all your infrastructure out in rural areas. Now, I love my rural brothers and sisters, so I'm not going to knock on them real quick. It is incredibly important that we get infrastructure out to them. But to circumvent the population centers where the vast majority of those experiencing the brunt of the digital divide reside is structural inequity at its finest. There was one segment planned for Oakland, and it was all of our eligible state rights of way. It was going to go along the I-580. Now, that does run adjacent to a couple of our underconnected communities, but that runs primarily through the wealthier, wider Oakland Hills. They were going to circumvent all of our historically redlined and currently structurally underserved, we can say, communities. This is where that coalition comes up, though. We had Oakland NAACP saying this is a civil rights issue. We had Roots Community Clinic saying, how do you expect my patients to get telehealth if they don't have access to broadband infrastructure? And with that coalition, we went to the state and we said, we need to do something about this map. And working alongside and in lockstep with our coalition, the state recognized that, man, we better do something about Oakland because they're going to keep showing up and showing out. And we're in talks at tripling to quadrupling the fiber infrastructure investment that the state is planning to make in Oakland. Now, that's just one example of the power of coalition, but the need for real quality, because until we make deep investments in communities that for generations have been divested in, not just that they haven't gotten the investment has been pulled away from them. Until we make those real investments, we will be in this perpetual cycle of trying to catch up. And I'm really excited for the opportunity to talk about this because it's tough for community coalitions that are focused on a million other things to be having this conversation. So I'm really grateful for this space to be able to lift this up. And I will say, in terms of coalition, like David is a tour de force who brings people together. And if you're on this call, you may have gotten a long text from David at one point or another saying, hey, we need you to come through. And so we've been able to get the boots on the ground really, really motivated and all walking in the same direction. And we're going to have to keep this fight to really leverage this historic moment, because the state middle mile is just the beginning, right? We got federal dollars coming in, and we got to make sure they're coming to Oakland and areas like Oakland.
Man, before I throw some love your way, David, I just want to be like, there were so many questions that were asked in the last episode. The validity of a mesh network, right? The validity of middle mile as it pertains to our biggest goal of fiber direct, right? How does, and I remember Lily from the Caper Center, like speaking directly to the cost benefit analysis, and Block Power doing a report to really give us an understanding of the effects of middle mile, and actually being able to like your kindergarten student now graduate, right? Going to Cal Berkeley, if I get that correctly. Shout outs to Miss Ramos.
3.6 GPA, but yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
Put some respect on the name. If they're outside the library and they're working, then we got to make sure the library is one of those hot connected spots that has more than the 3 to 10 megabytes per second that if now split across 3 different people does basically nothing. And so you're absolutely right. This layered approach that was brought up months ago, I'm loving to see it in effect, and we'll swing it way back to that map. I remember that map. I remember Dirk saying, hey, look, it juts through Piedmont and then up and out. It doesn't actually get down low. It doesn't hit the flats. So like, let's not pretend that this map is running across International or even MacArthur is kind of elevated, right? I love that the fight has been taken directly to the folks and being like, no, you got to know our city. And you can look at it on a map, and you can look at it as a square footage challenge. And okay, well, square miles, we'll put it here because it's equal. No, where are the people? Where are the people of highest need? Where's that density, that urban density, the strongest? And let's get it there. From the crib to the cuddies, we all need it.
Hey.
From the hood to the holler, we all got it.
Hey.
My rural brothers and sisters, like, for real, we're not leaving you out. But if you look at population density, we also have to make sure that those pockets of underserved, of left out, of marginalized, of redlined, of blocked, of any descriptor you want to throw out there, right? Like you said, you meet the qualifiers, let's give you some ACP. We got to make sure that we're really focusing in on those spaces. So I just wanted to double down on the knowledge that you dropped right there in case people missed it. They were just caught up in the joy and the passion that you have for this. Knowledge, y'all. Like, part of what made the Access Granted, Access Denied series so important to me personally was the knowledge that was getting dropped and how Dirk was able to bring it in and allow for the rest of us who weren't in that conversation directly to feel that we were getting that information. You know, if they're bringing horse-drawn fiber through the Appalachian Mountains, I was like, what? And Dirk's like, what? We were there at the same moment. Like, what? Why? Oh my God, right? Let's share this knowledge. So Patrick, thank you for the knowledge drops. We got a couple questions in the chat that I know we'll get to, but to those watching, throw a question in the chat. Manisha, shout outs to you for always being a pal, a supporter, just a force yourself in every arena you're in. We had an awesome call from each other at OUSD. I don't even think she remember that, but yeah, see, there it is, right? There's the shout out. We gotta support the folks that have the needs and not overlook our urban centers because the ISPs got us covered in some way. We need to be equitably covered in all ways. And so, man, that broadband challenge, I'm so happy that you're in the fight for it, Patrick, because your knowledge base seems strong and I know that your heart center is in the right place. Thank you. Anything to add, David, on the next steps? Like, especially like the sustainability. We were talking about, like, this ain't a bake sale, y'all. We can bake sale a lot of things. We're not going to bake sale our future. That's not how we leverage our future. Is there anything else to add on that front of sustainability?
I'll say two things on sustainability, and Patrick can share more. One, I think I cannot emphasize enough the community coalition. And I would love it if you don't mind, Kennan, if you could also, in addition to the page that you had, go to some of the community endorsers as well. The thing about this is it reminds me of a program called Ceasefire, which many of you know about, that is not a political program, but it's actually a movement that everyone can get behind. And so if you look here, whether it's all the, first of all, a big thank you to the funding partners and the signature partners that have recently come on. And if you keep going to the next page, look at these community endorsers for a moment. If you just stop for a sec. This is something that all city council, school board, elected officials that often don't agree, many of whom are running against each other for mayor, have all endorsed. This is not political. This is about equity for Oakland, and we can all get behind it. If that continues and keep going down the line with all of these amazing community-based organizations and endorsers that have come, and if you're not on that list, go to oaklandundivided.org, and we would love for you to endorse. If you're compelled by this vision, sign up for our newsletter and be able to get connected and be able to volunteer. But my point is this: keep going with it. Keep going.
Oh, it's a nice long list. I could scroll
through
the
list. The reason this will be sustained is because everyone will demand it. The community-based organizations, the mayoral candidates, the OUSD, the charters, the pre-K, the colleges, everyone, the community says this is a civil right, and that is why it will be sustained more than anything else, more than any dollar figure. I will say, in addition to that, and Patrick's done an amazing job on this, and I want to shout out Oakland Unified. I want to shout out charter LEAs. I want to shout out the city for helping to institutionalize many of the things that we've started are going into the fabric. Patrick, do you want to share a little bit about how we're institutionalizing this to sustain this?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the school front, we recognize that it all starts with identifying need. It's great to have a survey link, but asking families to take an online survey to talk about their online access, or handing out paper surveys that then you have to enter into a spreadsheet and upload it. Let's systematize this data collection. So our school partners are integrating what we affectionately call our tech check survey, which asks some basic questions about home digital access into the back to school registration and enrollment process that happens every year. So year over year, we're collecting data on 50,000 students, capturing any new unmet need and being able to respond using that as proof for accessing those federal dollars to ensure that we're kind of decreasing the distance between our families and opportunity. And then when it comes time for our citywide work, we are super excited to be welcoming our new CIO, Tony Batala, who led out a lot of this work in San Leandro. And he is bringing with him enthusiasm and excitement alongside our city leaders who we know are deeply invested in this mission to make broadband expansion a pillar of the ongoing work of the Department of Transportation. When they're paving a new road, they need to be burying conduit, right? So that we can install fiber. City IT to identify key anchor institutions. So when we get this middle mile infrastructure, we're branching off and connecting those anchor institutions. And then the fiber comes up to the roof, and innovative third mile providers like Monkey Brain and connecting our anchor institutions and public housing through Apartment Connect and Education Superhighway, right? The city's really taking this on as a core function of city government. So that's what's going to sustain, in addition to what David said, like our partners seeing themselves in this work and saying like, where are ways where we can integrate this work into existing systems, existing structures to work towards this shared goal?
Ooh, man, I am blessed. My brothers, I am honored. This is like better than I could have ever imagined for a second episode. I got the goosebumps. I'm charged up. I know, like I said, after the last episode, David, you put out a call to action. I saw Manisha put a question in there that's like, how can people help? Like, what can others do? How can we get engaged? And I know that, like, you have a call to action for us all. You have a space where we can do this, where we can, as normal, regular old people, Oaklanders repping the town, we can help and be engaged. Tell us what's the call to action for us? How can okay?
We're gonna rep the town
who
here.
Who you repping though? Like really though? What jersey is it? What you got on? Like who you?
Yes.
Are you stepping today? Are you playing? Like what numbers on the back of that jersey?
So I'll say two things, and I'm going to pass it to Patrick as well. Number one, go to our website, and if you go to the website, there are 5 ways to get involved. And maybe you could put it on the screen again, that page 8 of the program as well, Kennan, if that's okay. There's a barcode on there from the program. And also you can endorse so that we can show the community, we can show whoever is our next leaders that this is a priority moving forward. Going down.
Ooh,
yep, there you go, right there.
That's the QR code. That's the technology.
It'll be on the website. Donate, volunteer, share your story, your testimonials, what's working, what's not, offer feedback. I do want to actually go to, if you could go back up to the to that oaklandundivided.org/celebrate. There's a page there that actually also shows our testimonials. And if you go to oaklandundivided.org/celebrate, it's got everything. It's got our video. It's got pictures of our people, of our community. It's got the coalition. It's got testimonials from students, from parents who say, this doesn't just help me, my student. This helped me get a job. This helped me with my housing. These are real stories that we're talking about. If you go to the very top as well, there's some pictures there. And at the very top as well. Well, good. But I just want to name that this is something right here, cradle to career commitment. How often do you have everyone from babies all the way through college students, someone saying that this is the model as we go forward? You can scroll through it all you have, but the most important ones are the students and the parents. And if you missed the live stream, it's there, social media, share that out. We need people to know about it. And then the last thing I'll say is, and I'm going to pass it to Patrick as well, is we need people to sign up for the ACP. We need people, I think it was like the ACP equivalent before, it was like 8% of eligible families signed up for it. We need to get that 8. That's what we need to get to 98 or 100, because that's over 5 years. Once you sign up, you're done. That's 5 years, $30 a month, free. In addition to that, we need to make sure that we are advocating at the state level and at the federal level. And I'd love for Patrick to share a little bit about some of the fights that we will have in the future and ways that people can get along around, and ways that people can get involved with that coalition.
Yeah, David, thanks for teeing that up. And, you know, I think it starts with continuing this conversation. And Kennan, I want to thank you for hosting this space, because, you know, the digital divide came into really clear focus across the political spectrum during the pandemic. And with all that continues to happen, it is easy for broadband and digital access to become an issue of the day. We threw some money at it, and now it's on to the next one, right? But we have to recognize that digital access is no longer, a luxury good. It is a civil right. It is like many other utilities, although it's not regulated or subsidized like utilities. And it is going to be critical that we do not let this moment pass without, one, ensuring that this funding, historic amounts of funding at the state and federal level, circumvents communities that have been put at risk by historical divestment, but also that we don't let this just be a moment. We let this be the start of ending a structural inequity, one of the few that we could realistically, within the 10 years, decimate this inequity, bridge this inequity. You can't say that about many of our structural inequities here in the United States, but here's a real opportunity. So continue that conversation, go online, endorse, and get involved, so that when we go to meetings with the FCC, so that when Oakland shows up and shows out, when we show up at state hearings, when we show up at mayoral forums, that our voice is strong, our voice is unified, and that we keep this conversation going until we bridge this thing. And we got some ways to go, but if I was a betting man, I put some money on the town and the people at the grassroots, influencing all the way up to the grass tips, for sure.
Yeah, but beyond the game, David, come on, David. Jesus, wow! I swear, when you have a conversation, when you are open and vulnerable and transparent, and you're willing to talk, the words just come out. And I have no other last words. If you were not paying attention to Patrick, rewind. That is the last words. It is going to take all of us keeping this conversation active so we don't get circumnavigated in this process. If your name is not on the contributors list or on the partners list, or if you're not engaged with Tech Exchange or one of these partners, get down with these folks. They're fighting the good fight. And if you know anything about selfless humans, is that we run on a battery that is already empty. We need the support of the people to keep fighting, to keep pushing, to keep screaming at the top of our lungs that this is no longer a luxury. This is a human right. I cannot thank you two enough. I will probably be thanking you throughout the rest of the year, as we are luckily all in Oakland, and I can do this in person and say thank you and give you the praise and show up for your events and support you all and spread this word. Do follow Oakland Undivided on Twitter. Do go to the website. Do look at all the materials. Listen to the testimonies. Lord, if you don't hear the testimony of the mom who got a job thanks to the hotspot in her house that allowed her to fill out the application, you're not getting the heart center. And you're not refilling your cup on why you should be fighting this fight every day and pushing for it. This digital equity is the way in which we will be a part of our digital economy that is coming and that is here right now. We need to make sure that we all have a seat at this table of high-paying jobs so we can be the people that own our town and run what happens here in Oakland and beyond, from the cuts back into the crib, from the hood back out to the holler. I thank everyone who's joined, everyone who has watched this live stream again. Links will be posted in the chat and in the description so that you can tap in on ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program. Okay? I get real with y'all, man. If you're not tapping in, I'm coming to your house. And I want to know what the problem is. I'll give you my hotspot here. Join my personal hotspot and sign up. See if you're eligible because it is real. It is out there. It's almost like free money that we just forget to grab.
Yes.
And we don't do that. In urban areas, we see a dollar bill on the ground. We basically elbowing. It's like in the post. And Looney, you're not getting this one from me. You know what I mean? So tune in. Access Lit is going to stay lit every 2 weeks at noon Pacific Standard Time on your favorite platform, whether that be Facebook or YouTube, checking us out on Twitter. Do tap back in. I will be going nowhere. This energy is here to stay, y'all, and y'all just refilled my battery. Patrick, David, my brothers, in this fight and in this work, I appreciate you, and that is from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you both. This time was like 40 seconds, and I need another 40 seconds as soon as possible. So thank you so very much. Shout outs to Oakland Undivided. As always, shout outs to Ledbetter. Subscribe so you get the content that Ledbetter is putting out. This is all in honor of the great late Dirk, who, like you said, David, is still present. His spirit is here. It uplifts us. It revives us. It energizes what we're doing so that we can do it better. He asks the questions in our head that make us go, nah, that ain't enough. We got to keep pushing. So from here to out there, to all of you and to my guests, thank you so very much. I will see you again in 2 weeks. And do check out everything that's getting put out and join Oakland Undivided. I'm not playing with you. Donate to Oakland Undivided. Donate to Tech Exchange. Go crazy. Give $5 here, $5 there. You can do it. We can all do it because just, it's like half a tank. It's like a half a gallon of gas at this point, $5. Like you can't even get nothing for it, but you can create change by doing this work. So thank you so much. We are out. Peace, y'all. I'm going to end this broadcast till we see you again in 2 weeks.
Be well.